I'll never forget the look on my son's face when I introduced him to the new owners of Hayes Manufacturing. His mouth fell open, his eyes went wide, and for the first time in 45 years, Terrence was completely speechless. He'd walked into that conference room expecting me to hand him the keys to my kingdom. Instead, I handed him the biggest reality check of his entitled life. "Mom, what are you doing?" he finally managed to choke out, his voice cracking like he was 12 years old again. I smiled at the three executives from Riverside Industries sitting across the mahogany table I'd purchased 30 years ago with my first big profit. "I'm doing exactly what you told me to do, Terrence. I'm retiring." Before we continue, please drop a comment if you've ever experienced something like this. We'd love to hear your story, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Let me take you back to where this all started, because you need to understand how a woman like me, Vivian Hayes, ended up selling the company she built with her own two hands just to teach her son a lesson he should have learned decades ago. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama in 1957, right in the middle of everything that was happening in this country. My mama cleaned houses, and my daddy worked at the steel mill until his lungs gave out when I was 16. I learned early that nobody was going to hand me anything in this life. After high school, I moved to Detroit with my husband, Leonard, God rest his soul. We were young, in love, and broke as a joke, but we had dreams bigger than the Motor City itself. Leonard worked at the auto plants while I took night classes in business management. During the day, I cleaned offices. I'd push that vacuum cleaner and dream about the day I'd be sitting in one of those big leather chairs instead of cleaning around them. We had our first baby, my daughter Alicia, when I was 23. Terrence came along 3 years later. When I was 32, Leonard died in a car accident on his way home from the night shift. Just like that, I was a widow with 2 kids, no college degree, and about $800 in the bank. I could have given up. Lord knows nobody would have blamed me. But my mama didn't raise a quitter, and I had 2 babies depending on me. I used that $800 and a small life insurance payout to buy industrial sewing machines. I started Hayes Manufacturing in my basement, making work uniforms for local businesses. I sewed 18 hours a day while the kids were at school and after they went to bed. My fingers bled. My back ached. But I didn't stop. Within 2 years, I had 5 employees working out of a small warehouse. Within 5, I had contracts with 3 major automotive companies. Within 10, I owned a 50,000-square-foot facility employing 200 people. I made sure my kids never went without, but I also made sure they understood the value of hard work. Alicia got it. Every summer starting at 15, she worked in the warehouse, learning every position from the ground up. She went to college, got her business degree, and came back to work as my operations manager. She understood that Hayes Manufacturing wasn't just a company. It was our family's legacy, built on sacrifice and determination. Terrence, though, Terrence was a different story. I don't know where I went wrong with that boy. Maybe I was too soft on him because he lost his daddy young. Maybe I gave him too much trying to make up for what he didn't have. Whatever the reason, Terrence grew up expecting everything to be handed to him on a silver platter. He barely graduated high school, partied his way through community college, and dropped out after 2 years. "School isn't for me, Ma," he'd say. "I'm more of a hands-on learner." But when I offered him a position starting on the warehouse floor like Alicia had done, he looked at me like I'd suggested he clean toilets with his bare hands. "I'm your son," he said. "I shouldn't have to start at the bottom. That's for regular employees." I should have put my foot down then. I should have told him that being my son meant he had to work twice as hard to prove himself, not half as much. But I didn't. I gave him a mid-level management position he hadn't earned, and I spent the next 15 years watching him coast on my name while contributing almost nothing to the company. He'd show up late, leave early, take 2-hour lunches. When I'd confront him, he'd charm his way out of it or blame someone else. His department had the highest turnover rate in the company because nobody wanted to work for someone who did less than they did, but made 3 times as much. I kept hoping he'd mature, that he'd eventually understand what it meant to be a Hayes. I kept making excuses for him. Alicia never said anything, but I could see the resentment in her eyes. She was running the entire operations side of the business, managing millions of dollars in contracts, and her younger brother was getting paid nearly as much to shuffle papers and take credit for other people's work. Then came the grandkids. Alicia married a good man named Darren, and they gave me 2 beautiful grandchildren, Zara and Isaiah. Watching Alicia balance motherhood and her career made me so proud. She never asked for special treatment, never used her kids as an excuse. She just kept showing up and showing out. Terrence married a woman named Simone who was just as entitled as he was. I tried to like her, I really did, but she looked down on everyone, including me. At family dinners, she'd make comments about our humble beginnings, like it was something to be ashamed of. She'd talk about other companies, bigger companies, and how Terrence deserved to be running one of them. They had one son, my grandson Cameron. That boy was being raised with no understanding of struggle, no appreciation for hard work. At 8 years old, he already had the same attitude as his father, expecting everything and appreciating nothing. Last year, I turned 68. The company was doing better than ever. We'd just landed our biggest contract, a 5-year deal with a major national retailer to produce their entire line of work apparel. It was the kind of deal I'd dreamed about for 36 years. But my body was tired. My knees hurt. My hands, the same hands that had sewn those first uniforms in my basement, were twisted with arthritis. I started talking about succession planning. In my mind, it was obvious. Alicia would take over as CEO. She'd earned it 1,000 times over. She knew every aspect of the business, had the respect of every employee, and had the vision to take Hayes Manufacturing into the future. But Terrence had other ideas. It started with little comments at family gatherings. "When Mom retires, I'm going to modernize everything," he'd say. "Take the company to the next level." He'd talk about his vision and his plans like he'd been the one building this business for nearly 4 decades instead of riding my coattails for 15 years. I ignored it at first. Then he started having his wife drop hints. "Terrence is so excited to finally have the chance to show what he can do," Simone would say. "He's been preparing for this his whole life." Preparing? The boy couldn't prepare a decent quarterly report if his life depended on it. 3 months ago, I called a family meeting to discuss my retirement timeline and succession plans. I was going to make it official. Alicia would be CEO, and Terrence would report to her like everyone else. Maybe having to finally prove himself would be the wake-up call he needed. We met at my house on a Sunday after church. I'd made a big meal, collard greens, mac and cheese, fried chicken, cornbread, the works. My pastor's words from that morning's sermon were still ringing in my ears. "The Lord blesses those who work with diligent hands, but entitlement is a poison that destroys from within." We were all sitting around the dining room table, the same table where I'd done the company's bookkeeping in the early years. I was just about to start talking when Terrence interrupted me. "Before you say anything, Mom, I want to talk." He stood up like he was about to give a speech. "I know you're getting ready to retire, and I want you to know I'm ready. I've been ready. It's time for fresh blood, new ideas. It's time for my generation to take over." I looked at Alicia. Her face was calm, but I knew my daughter. She was furious. "Terrence," I said carefully, "we need to discuss this as a family." "What's to discuss?" He cut me off, his voice rising. "I'm your son. The company should go to me. That's how it works." "That's not how it works," Alicia said quietly. "The company should go to whoever's earned it." Terrence rounded on her. "Just because you're the favorite doesn't mean you deserve it more than me." "Favorite?" Alicia's voice was still quiet, but there was steel in it now. "I've worked for everything I have in this company. You've coasted for 15 years. "Enough," I said, raising my hand. But they weren't listening. "You're just jealous," Terrence spat at his sister. "Because Mom sees potential in me, that she doesn't see in you." That's when I should have put him in his place. But Simone jumped in, backing up her husband, and soon everyone was talking over each other. The dinner I'd spent all morning preparing sat getting cold on the table while my family fell apart. Finally, I stood up. "Everyone be quiet!" My voice came out sharper than I'd intended, but it worked. They all stopped talking. "We will discuss this like adults, or we won't discuss it at all. Terrence, sit down." He sat, but I could see the anger in his eyes. The meeting ended with nothing resolved. Terrence and Simone left in a huff, and Alicia left looking defeated. I sat alone at that table, looking at all that uneaten food, and felt like I'd failed. Over the next 2 months, Terrence's behavior at work got worse. He'd undermine Alicia in meetings. He'd make decisions without consulting anyone, decisions that cost us time and money. He started telling employees that when he took over, things would be different, creating division and uncertainty. I had conversations with him, gentle ones at first, then firmer ones. Nothing changed. He felt entitled to my company simply because he was my son, regardless of the fact that he'd contributed almost nothing to its success. 2 weeks ago, everything came to a head. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was in my office going over some contracts. Terrence walked in without knocking, which he knew I hated. He closed the door behind him and stood in front of my desk with his arms crossed. "We need to talk," he said. "Then sit down and talk," I replied, not looking up from my papers. "I'm tired of waiting, Mom." Something in his tone made me look up. There was a hardness in his face I'd never seen before. Tired of waiting for what? For you to do the right thing. For you to step down and give me what's mine. I put down my pen slowly. "What's yours? Terrence, you haven't earned—" "I'm tired of hearing about earning it." He slammed his hand on my desk, making me jump. "I'm your son. This company should be mine. But instead, you're going to give it to Alicia because she's your little golden child who does everything perfectly. Alicia works hard. I'm tired of you, Mom." The words came out cold and hard. "I'm tired of your lectures about hard work and earning things. I'm tired of living in your shadow. I'm tired of being compared to my sister. Just retire already and give me the company. Stop dragging this out." I stared at my son. This man I'd given life to, raised, sacrificed for, and all I could feel was a deep, bone-weary sadness. Not anger, not hurt, just sadness. "Get out of my office," I said quietly. "Mom, get out." He left, slamming the door behind him. I sat there for a long time, staring at the pictures on my wall. Photos of me at various stages of building this company. Groundbreaking ceremonies, contract signings, awards and recognitions. In some of them, younger versions of Terrence and Alicia stood beside me, smiling. Where had I gone wrong? That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, the house too quiet, thinking about everything. About Leonard and what he would say if he could see his son now. About all those years of hard work, the sacrifices, the dreams. About what it all meant if this was where it ended up. Around 3 a.m, I made a decision. If Terrence wanted me to retire, I would retire, but not on his terms. The next morning I called my lawyer, Byron Jefferson. He'd been handling my legal affairs for 20 years. "Byron," I said, "I need you to do something for me, and I need you to keep it absolutely confidential." "Of course, Vivian. What do you need?" "I need you to reach out to Riverside Industries. I want to explore selling Hayes Manufacturing." There was a long pause. "Vivian, are you sure? You've spent your entire adult life building that company." "I'm sure. And Byron? Not a word to anyone. Not Alicia, not anyone." Over the next 2 weeks, I moved in complete secrecy. Riverside Industries had been trying to acquire Hayes Manufacturing for 5 years. They jumped at the opportunity. I met with their CEO, a woman named Patricia Chen who'd built her own empire from nothing. We understood each other. The deal was fair, more than fair. They'd pay me $75 million for the company. All current employees would keep their jobs with better benefits. Alicia would be offered a position as Chief Operating Officer with a significant raise and stock options. It was everything I could have hoped for her and for the people who'd worked so hard to build this company with me. The only person who wouldn't benefit was the one person who'd never earned the right to. I played my part perfectly. At work, I acted like nothing had changed. I even let Terrence think he was winning. When he'd make his snide comments about when I'm in charge, I'd just smile and nod. Let him dream. The contracts were signed in private. The deal was done. All that was left was the announcement. I called a family meeting for today, telling everyone it was time to make the succession plan official. I could see the triumph in Terrence's eyes when I said it. He thought he'd won. He'd worn me down, pushed me into giving him what he wanted. This morning, I put on my best suit, the burgundy one I'd worn when we landed that first major contract. I did my hair and makeup carefully. I wanted to look like the woman I was, the woman I'd always been. Strong, unbreakable, someone who'd earned every single thing she had. The meeting was set for 2 o'clock in the company's main conference room. I arrived early, along with the 3 executives from Riverside Industries. We'd prepared everything, all the paperwork, all the announcements. Alicia arrived first, looking confused when she saw the strangers. "Mom, what's going on?" "Trust me, baby," I said, squeezing her hand. "Just trust me." Terrence and Simone arrived at exactly 2, both dressed up like they were going to a coronation. The smugness on Terrence's face made my decision feel even more right. "Good, everyone's here," I said, standing at the head of the table. "Thank you all for coming. I know you've been waiting for me to make an announcement about my retirement and the future of Hayes Manufacturing." Terrence was practically glowing. Simone had her phone out, ready to record his big moment. "As you know, I've spent 36 years building this company from nothing. It's been my life's work, my pride and joy." I paused, looking directly at Terrence. "But recently, someone made me realize that it might be time to let go." Terrence nodded, like he was graciously accepting my wisdom. "So I'm announcing today that I'm officially retiring." I smiled. "Effective immediately." Terrence stood up, ready to accept his crown. "Which is why," I continued, "I'd like to introduce you all to the new owners of Hayes Manufacturing." I gestured to the 3 executives. "This is Patricia Chen, CEO of Riverside Industries and her team. As of last Friday, Riverside Industries is now the proud owner of Hayes Manufacturing." The silence in that room was deafening. Terrence's face went from triumphant to confused to horrified in the span of 3 seconds. "What?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "I sold the company," I said calmly. "And before you ask, yes, I made sure everyone was taken care of. All employees keep their positions with better benefits. Alicia has been offered an executive role with a substantial promotion." I looked at my daughter. Tears were streaming down her face, but she was smiling. She understood. She knew this wasn't about punishing anyone. It was about protecting what I'd built from someone who would destroy it. "Mom." Terrence finally found his voice. "What are you doing?" Which brings us back to where I started. "I'm doing exactly what you told me to do, Terrence," I said. "I'm retiring. You said you were tired of me, tired of waiting." "So I made it easy for you. Now you don't have to wait anymore. And you don't have to be tired of me, because there's nothing left for you to inherit." "You can't do this." He was on his feet now, his face red. "That company is mine. You built it for me." "No, Terrence. I built it for me. I built it from my blood, sweat, and tears. I built it from every sacrifice I made, every night I went without sleep, every dream I had for a better life. and I'll be damned if I hand it over to someone who thinks they deserve it just because they showed up. This is because of Alicia, isn't it? His voice was venomous now. She poisoned you against me. Alicia never said a word against you, I replied. She didn't have to. Your actions spoke loud enough. Simone jumped in, her voice shrill. This is illegal. We'll sue. That company should go to family. Byron, who'd been standing quietly in the corner, stepped forward. The sale was completely legal. Mrs. Hayes owned 100% of the company. She had every right to sell it to whomever she chose. Mom, please. Terrence's voice cracked, and for a moment he looked like that little boy I used to tuck into bed at night. Please don't do this. I'm sorry. I'll change. I'll work harder. I'll prove myself. Just give me another chance. And that was the hardest part. Because even after everything, he was still my son, and a part of me wanted to believe him, wanted to give him that chance. But I thought about all the chances I'd already given him, all the times I'd made excuses, covered for him, hoped he'd change. I thought about what would happen to all those employees, all those families depending on Hayes Manufacturing, if I put them in the hands of someone who'd never proven he could handle the responsibility. I'm sorry, Terrence, I said, and I meant it. But I've given you chances for 45 years. You told me you were tired of me. Well, now you're free. You don't have to be tired anymore. He stared at me for a long moment, and I watched something shift in his eyes. The pleading disappeared, replaced by pure hatred. I will never forgive you for this, he said, his voice low and dangerous. You're not my mother anymore. As far as I'm concerned, you're dead to me. He grabbed Simone's arm and stormed out of the conference room. I heard his footsteps echoing down the hallway, then the slam of the building's front door. Alicia came around the table and hugged me tight. Mom, she whispered. Are you okay? Was I okay? I'd just lost my son. I'd just sold the company I'd spent my entire adult life building. I'd just blown up my family. But as I stood there, with my daughter's arms around me and the weight of 36 years finally lifting from my shoulders, I realized something. For the first time in a very long time, I was free. Patricia Chen approached us, extending her hand. Mrs. Hayes, we'll take good care of your legacy. You have my word. I shook her hand, but I barely heard her. Because my phone was ringing. I pulled it from my purse and saw Terrence's name on the screen. Maybe he was calling to apologize. Maybe he'd realized what he'd done, what he'd lost. I answered. Hello? You're going to regret this. His voice was ice cold. I'm going to make sure you regret this for the rest of your life. By the time I'm done, you'll have nothing. No family, no respect, nothing. I'm going to destroy you the same way you destroyed me. Then the line went dead. I stood there holding my phone, my hand trembling slightly. Alicia was watching me, concern written all over her face. Mom? What did he say? I looked at my daughter, then at Byron, then at the executives from Riverside Industries who were packing up their briefcases, ready to take over the company I'd built from nothing. What had I done? And what was Terrence planning to do next? The threats started the very next day. I woke up to 17 missed calls from Terrence and 12 text messages, each one more vicious than the last. I won't repeat most of what he said, but the general message was clear. I was a terrible mother, I'd ruined his life, and he was going to make me pay. I was sitting at my kitchen table in my robe, staring at my phone, when Alicia called. Mom, have you seen what he's posting online? My stomach dropped. What do you mean? Check Facebook. Check Instagram. He's telling everyone you're senile, that you were manipulated into selling the company, that I'm the one who poisoned you against him. I opened Facebook with shaking hands. There it was, a long post from Terrence, written like some kind of public service announcement. It breaks my heart to share this, it began. But my mother, Vivian Hayes, is not well. She's been showing signs of dementia for months, and yesterday she was manipulated into selling the family business our father built. My sister has been controlling her, isolating her from family, and now she's stolen our inheritance. Please pray for our family during this difficult time." I read it twice, my blood pressure rising with each word. Our father built? Leonard died when Hayes Manufacturing was nothing but a dream and a basement full of sewing machines. And dementia? I was sharper now than most people half my age. But that wasn't even the worst part. The comments were what really got me. Hundreds of people, many of them folks I'd known for years, were sharing it, commenting with prayers and sympathies. "So sad," one person wrote. "Elder abuse is real." Another, "That daughter should be ashamed of herself." My phone rang. It was my sister, Denise, calling from Atlanta. "Viv, what in the world is going on? Terrence is saying you're sick?" "I'm not sick, Denise. I'm perfectly fine." "Then why did you sell the company? That doesn't make any sense." "You love that company." I spent 20 minutes explaining everything to her, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. Terrence had gotten to her first, planted seeds of suspicion that I couldn't quite uproot. Over the next 3 days, it got worse. Terrence and Simone launched a full-scale campaign to destroy my reputation. They called every family member, every friend, every church member they could think of. They told everyone the same story. I was mentally declining, Alicia was taking advantage of me, and they were just trying to protect me. Some people saw through it. My best friend, Charlene, called me immediately. "Girl, I know you ain't crazy," she said. "That boy of yours is just mad you didn't hand him something he never earned. Don't let him get in your head." But others believed him, or at least, they weren't sure what to believe. I started getting phone calls from concerned friends, gentle questions about my health, suggestions that maybe I should see a doctor, just to be safe. The worst was when Pastor Reynolds called. He'd married me and Leonard, baptized both my children, and presided over Leonard's funeral. He'd been there for every major moment of my life for the past 40 years. "Sister Vivian," he said carefully, "I've been hearing some concerning things. Terrence came to see me yesterday, and he's very worried about you." "Pastor, I promise you I'm fine. Terrence is upset because I didn't give him the company he never earned." There was a pause. "But selling it so suddenly without discussing it with your family, that does seem out of character for you." "I discussed it plenty. Terrence just didn't like what I had to say. Perhaps we should sit down, you, me, Terrence, and Alicia. Try to work through this as a family." I wanted to scream, but Pastor Reynolds meant well, so I kept my voice calm. "I appreciate your concern, Pastor, but this is between me and my children." After I hung up, I sat on my couch and cried for the first time since this whole thing started. Not because I regretted my decision, but because I was watching my son systematically try to destroy me, and people I'd known for decades were starting to believe him. On Thursday morning, exactly 1 week after I'd sold the company, Byron called with news that made my blood run cold. "Vivian, Terrence has filed a lawsuit. He's claiming you weren't of sound mind when you sold the company, and he's seeking to have the sale overturned." "On what grounds? I'm perfectly healthy." "He's claiming undue influence from Alicia, and he's demanding that you undergo a psychological evaluation to prove your competency." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Can he do that? He can file it. Whether it goes anywhere is another matter. But Vivian, this is going to get ugly. He's also filed for a temporary restraining order, claiming Alicia has been financially exploiting you. "That's insane! Alicia has never taken a dime from me that she didn't earn." "I know, but we're going to have to fight this in court. Are you prepared for that?" Was I prepared? I'd just wanted to retire in peace, maybe travel a little, spend time with my grandchildren. Instead, I was about to go to war with my own son. "Do what you need to do." Byron. That afternoon, I got served with papers at my home. The process server was a young man who looked embarrassed to be there. He handed me the thick envelope and mumbled an apology before practically running back to his car. I sat on my front porch and read through the documents. The legal language was dense, but the message was clear. Terrence was claiming I was an incompetent old woman being controlled by my daughter, and he wanted a judge to reverse everything I'd done. I was still sitting there, papers in my lap, when Charlene's car pulled into my driveway. She got out with 2 other women from our church, Paulette and Denise Washington, sisters who'd been members of our congregation for 30 years. "We heard what happened," Charlene said, climbing the porch steps. "And we're here to tell you that we don't believe a word of what Terrence is saying." Paulette nodded. "That boy has been entitled his whole life. We remember. We've watched you build that company from nothing while raising 2 kids on your own. If you sold it, you had a good reason." I felt tears prick my eyes again. "Thank you. You don't know how much I needed to hear that." "We also talked to some other folks from church," Denise Washington added. "There's a group of us who want you to know we're on your side. Whatever you need, we're here." Over the next few days, I realized just how many people were in my corner. My neighbor, Mr. Peterson, an 80-year-old retired lawyer, came over with a stack of legal books. "I may be retired, but my mind's still sharp," he said. "Let me look over those court documents. Maybe I can help." My former employees started calling. "Mrs. Hayes," said Gloria, who'd worked for me for 25 years. "We all know what you did for us. You gave us jobs when nobody else would. You gave us good pay, good benefits, treated us like family. That boy of yours never did a day of real work in his life. You want us to testify to that? We will." Even people I barely knew reached out. A woman from my book club sent a card. "I watched my own children try to take advantage of me," she wrote. "Stand strong. You did the right thing." But for every person who supported me, there was another who questioned me. Family reunions were coming up in a few weeks, and I was already hearing through the grapevine that some relatives thought I should make peace with Terrence, that I was tearing the family apart. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. Byron assured me it would be fine. "The burden of proof is on him," he said. "He has to prove you weren't competent, and that's not going to be easy." But I was scared. What if the judge believed Terrence? What if they really did think I was some confused old woman? I decided I needed to be proactive. I scheduled a full medical workup, including cognitive testing. My doctor, Dr. Yolanda Price, had been treating me for 15 years. "Vivian," she said, looking over my test results, "your cognitive function is excellent. Better than most 60-year-olds I see. There's absolutely no evidence of dementia or any other impairment." "Will you testify to that in court if needed?" "Absolutely. And I'll provide written documentation. What your son is claiming is not just wrong, it's defamatory." Armed with that documentation, I felt a little better. But Terrence wasn't done. The Sunday before the hearing, I went to church like I always did. I'd been attending Greater Hope Baptist for 38 years. This was my spiritual home, my community. I walked in with my head held high, wearing my lavender dress and my good shoes. But something felt different. People were staring, whispering. Some folks who normally greeted me warmly looked away. I found my usual seat, third pew from the front on the left side. That's when I noticed Terrence and Simone sitting across the aisle with little Cameron. They'd barely attended church in years, but there they were, dressed like they were going to a royal wedding. Terrence looked over at me and smiled. Not a warm smile, a cold, calculated smile that said, "I'm winning." Pastor Reynolds gave a sermon about forgiveness and family. It was a beautiful message, but I couldn't help feeling like it was directed at me. Like I was the one who needed to forgive, to forget, to just hand over everything to keep the peace. After service, during fellowship hour, I overheard Simone talking to a group of church ladies. "It's just so hard," she was saying, her voice dripping with false emotion. "We're trying to get her help, but Alicia won't let us near her. She's isolated Vivian completely." I was standing right there. Alicia was standing right next to me. But Simone acted like we were invisible. One of the ladies, Sister Barbara, turned to me. "Vivian, is everything all right? We've been so worried." "I'm fine," I said firmly. "Perfectly fine. And I'm not isolated. My daughter is right here, and she's been nothing but supportive." "But the lawsuit..." Sister Barbara looked uncomfortable. "Terrence says..." "Terrence is lying," Alicia cut in, her voice sharp. "My mother is completely competent, and she made a business decision that my brother didn't like. That's all this is." Simone gasped like Alicia had slapped her. "How dare you? We're trying to protect her." "Protect her from what?" Alicia's voice rose. "From making her own decisions? From finally being free of a son who's done nothing but use her?" People were staring now. The fellowship hall got quiet. "Girls," Pastor Reynolds appeared, his hands raised. "This is God's house. Let's not do this here." But Terrence stood up, pointing at Alicia. "You've turned my mother against me. You've poisoned her mind because you wanted the company for yourself." "I never wanted the company," Alicia shouted back. "I wanted to earn my place, which is something you never understood." "Enough!" I found my voice, louder than I'd intended. The entire fellowship hall went silent. "Terrence, Simone, if you have something to say to me, say it to my face. Stop spreading lies about my mental health. Stop trying to turn my church family against me. And stop pretending this is about anything other than your own greed." Terrence's face went red. "You're going to regret this, old woman. When that judge hears what we have to say, you're going to lose everything." "Then I guess we'll see each other in court," I replied. He grabbed Simone's hand and Cameron's hand and stormed out of the fellowship hall. Half the room watched them go with sympathy in their eyes. The other half looked at me with a mixture of respect and concern. I didn't stay for coffee and cookies. I couldn't. I went home, changed out of my church clothes, and sat in my living room staring at the walls. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway. "Mrs. Hayes?" A woman's voice. "My name is Detective Angela Morrison with the Detroit Police Department. I need to talk to you about a report we received." My heart started racing. "A report? What kind of report?" "A report of elder abuse and financial exploitation. Your son called us this morning." I couldn't breathe. Terrence had called the police on me, on his own mother. "Detective, I can assure you..." "Ma'am, I need you to come down to the station tomorrow morning so we can sort this out. Can you do that?" Yes, of course." After I hung up, I just sat there numb. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. Terrence was trying to have me investigated for crimes I didn't commit. He was trying to paint me as a victim of my own daughter. And the worst part? Some people were believing him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the little boy I used to rock to sleep. The boy who'd cried when he scraped his knee and called for his mama. The boy I'd worked 3 jobs to provide for after his daddy died. Where had that boy gone? When had he become this stranger who could look me in the eye and try to destroy me? Around 3 a.m, I got up and went to the kitchen for some water. That's when I saw the car parked across the street. Dark sedan, running, just sitting there. I turned off the kitchen light and watched. After about 10 minutes, the car slowly drove away. The next morning, I mentioned it to Byron when he picked me up to go to the police station. "You're being watched?" He frowned. "Vivian, has anything else happened? Any other strange occurrences?" "Like what?" "Like anything that might be part of a pattern. Terrence seems determined to prove you're incompetent. What if he's trying to manufacture evidence?" The thought sent chills down my spine, but I pushed it away. "Let's just deal with the police first." Detective Morrison turned out to be a tall black woman in her 40s with kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor. She sat across from me in a small interview room and pulled out a notebook. "Mrs. Hayes, I appreciate you coming in. I want you to know that we take elder abuse very seriously. I understand, Detective, but I need you to understand something. I am not being abused. I made a business decision that my son didn't like, and now he's retaliating. For the next hour, I explained everything. Byron provided documentation, medical records, financial statements, proof that I was in complete control of my faculties and my finances. Detective Morrison listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, she closed her notebook and looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. Mrs. Hayes, off the record, I've seen this before. Adult children who feel entitled to their parents' money, who'll do anything to get it. The problem is, sometimes these cases get complicated. Your son is going to keep pushing, keep making accusations. You need to protect yourself. How do I do that? Document everything. Every conversation, every interaction. If he continues harassing you, file for a restraining order. And... She hesitated. You might want to consider changing your will, making sure your assets are protected. Because if he's willing to do all this, there's no telling what he might try next. I thanked her and left with Byron. As we walked to his car, I felt exhausted. This wasn't supposed to be my life. I was supposed to be retired, relaxed, enjoying the fruits of 4 decades of hard work. Instead, I was at war with my own child. Byron, I said as he drove me home, what do you think Detective Morrison meant by what he might try next? He was quiet for a moment. Vivian, I don't want to scare you, but we need to be realistic. Terrence has shown he's willing to lie, to manipulate people, to use the legal system as a weapon. We need to make sure you're protected. Protected from what? He's my son. He wouldn't... I stopped myself. Wouldn't what? Wouldn't hurt me? 3 weeks ago, I would have said my son would never publicly call me senile either. I would have said he'd never sue me or call the police on me. What else might he do? That night, Alicia came over with dinner. We ate in silence for a while before she finally spoke. Mom, I think you should come stay with me and Darren for a while. Just until this all blows over. I'm not leaving my home because my son is throwing a tantrum. It's more than a tantrum now, Mom. He's dangerous. You saw how he acted at church. You saw that car watching your house. What if what, Alicia? What if he tries to hurt me? He's my baby. He wouldn't... Would the Terrence you knew 3 weeks ago have done any of the things he's done in the past 3 weeks? She had a point. I didn't answer. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it. You think you've won, but this is just beginning. I'm going to take everything from you, starting with your freedom. My hands started shaking. Alicia saw my face and grabbed the phone. Her expression went dark. That's it. I'm calling the police. This is threatening. No, I said. Let's wait until after the hearing. I don't want to give him any more ammunition to claim I'm paranoid or mentally unstable. The hearing was in 2 days. 2 days until I had to stand in front of a judge and prove I was competent to make my own decisions. 2 days until I had to defend myself against my own son in a court of law. I went to bed that night with my doors locked and my phone on my nightstand. But I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow looked suspicious. Around midnight, I heard it. A noise from my backyard, like someone trying to open the sliding glass door. I sat up, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. Slowly, quietly, I reached for my phone. Then I heard glass breaking. Someone was in my house. I didn't scream. Years of surviving on my own had taught me to think first, panic later. I grabbed my phone, dialed 911, and whispered my address to the operator while I moved as quietly as I could to my bedroom closet. Someone's breaking in. I breathed into the phone. I'm hiding. Please hurry. I could hear footsteps downstairs, heavy footsteps. Whoever it was wasn't trying to be quiet anymore. I heard drawers opening, things being moved around. They were searching for something. Then I heard voices. 2 people, maybe 3. Check upstairs, someone said. A male voice. but I couldn't tell if it was Terrence. My closet had a lock on the inside, something Leonard had installed years ago when we'd had a break-in scare. I turned it as silently as I could and pressed myself into the corner behind my hanging clothes. The footsteps came up the stairs. My bedroom door opened. "She's not here," a voice said. "Maybe she's staying somewhere else. Then let's make this quick. Get the papers, anything that looks important. We need proof she's not capable of managing her own affairs." That voice I recognized. Terrence. My own son had broken into my house. I heard them rifling through my bedroom, opening drawers, going through my desk. They were trying to find financial documents, medical records, anything they could twist to use against me in court. "Got her checkbook," someone said. "And there's pills here. Blood pressure medication, arthritis medication. We can use this." "Take pictures of everything," Terrence said. "Make it look like she's confused. Can't manage her medications. Can't handle her finances." They were in my room for maybe 5 minutes, but it felt like hours. Finally, I heard them go back downstairs. More sounds of drawers opening, papers rustling. Then, blessed sound, sirens. "Cops! Go! Go! Go!" I heard them running, a door slamming. The sirens got louder. I stayed in that closet, phone clutched in my hand, until I heard the police calling out, "Detroit PD? Anyone in the house? I'm here." My voice came out shaky. "I'm upstairs, in the bedroom closet." The intruders ran out the back. 2 officers came upstairs, weapons drawn. A young black officer and an older white officer with gray hair. When they saw me climbing out of the closet, the younger one immediately holstered his weapon. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" "No, just scared." My legs were shaking so bad I had to sit on the bed. The older officer was already on his radio, calling in the description I'd given. 3 suspects fled on foot through the backyard. One male voice identified by the homeowner as her son, Terrence Hayes. More police arrived. They photographed the broken glass door, dusted for fingerprints, took my statement. I told them everything, including the lawsuit, the harassment, and the threats. Detective Morrison showed up about an hour later, looking grim. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm going to be honest with you. Your son is escalating. This isn't just about money anymore. This is about control, and men like that don't stop until they're forced to stop." "What do I do?" "For starters, we're issuing an arrest warrant for breaking and entering. And I'm recommending you get a personal protection order immediately." She looked at the officers. "Can we get someone to sit on this house tonight?" The older officer nodded. "I'll make sure there's a patrol car out front until morning." Alicia arrived 30 minutes later, still in her pajamas, her husband Darren right behind her. She took one look at my face and burst into tears. "Mama, you could have been hurt. You could have been—" She couldn't finish. "I'm fine, baby. I'm okay." "No, you're not okay. None of this is okay." She turned to Darren. "Pack her a bag. She's staying with us, and I don't want to hear any arguments." For once, I didn't argue. I let them pack my things. I let the police secure my house. And I let my daughter take me home with her. Because the truth was, I was scared. Scared of what my son had become. Scared of what he might do next. The hearing was the next morning. Byron picked me up at Alicia's house at 8 a.m. I'd barely slept, but I was dressed in my best navy suit, my hair done, my makeup perfect. I wasn't going to let Terrence see me broken. The courthouse was downtown, a big granite building I'd walked past 1,000 times but never entered. Byron led me through security and up to the 3rd floor, to a courtroom that smelled like old wood and legal documents. Terrence was already there with his lawyer, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. Simone sat behind them, dressed like she was going to a funeral. They didn't look at me when I walked in. The judge was a black woman in her 50s, Judge Valerie Crawford. Byron had told me she had a reputation for being fair but tough, with no patience for nonsense. "All rise," the bailiff called, and we stood as Judge Crawford took her seat. "Be seated," she said, looking over her glasses at the papers in front of her. "We're here for a preliminary hearing in the matter of Hayes versus Hayes. Mr. Coleman, you're representing the plaintiff?" Terrence's lawyer stood. "Yes, Your Honor, Grant Coleman for the plaintiff Terrence Hayes." "And, Mr. Jefferson, you're representing the defendant, Mrs. Vivian Hayes?" Byron stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "Mr. Coleman, this is your motion. Proceed." For the next 30 minutes, I sat there and listened to Terrence's lawyer paint a picture of me as a confused, mentally declining old woman who'd been manipulated into selling her company. He talked about my age, my medications, my sudden and uncharacteristic decision to sell. "Furthermore, Your Honor," Coleman said, "we have evidence that Mrs. Hayes's daughter, Alicia Hayes Williams, has been systematically isolating her mother from family members, controlling her finances, and influencing her decisions. We believe this sale was the result of undue influence and elder exploitation." Judge Crawford looked at me over her glasses. "Mrs. Hayes, do you understand what's being alleged here?" I stood up. "Yes, Your Honor, and it's all lies." "You'll have your chance to respond, Mrs. Hayes. Please sit." Byron stood. "Your Honor, if I may. We have extensive documentation that Mrs. Hayes is fully competent and made this decision of her own free will. We have medical evaluations, cognitive testing, financial records, and witness statements. Additionally, we'd like to inform the court that just last night, Mr. Terrence Hayes and 2 accomplices broke into his mother's home, apparently attempting to steal documents to manufacture evidence for this hearing." The courtroom erupted. Terrence jumped to his feet. "That's a lie!" "Order!" Judge Crawford banged her gavel. "Mr. Hayes, sit down and be quiet, or I'll hold you in contempt." She turned to Byron. "Mr. Jefferson, that's a serious allegation. Do you have proof?" "We have a police report filed last night, Your Honor. Detroit PD responded to a 911 call from Mrs. Hayes. There's an active arrest warrant for Mr. Hayes." Judge Crawford's expression went ice cold. She looked at Terrence. "Is this true, Mr. Hayes? Did you break into your mother's home?" Coleman jumped up. "Your Honor, my client denies any involvement. I asked your client, not you." She stared at Terrence. "Well?" Terrence's face was red, sweat beading on his forehead. I was concerned about her, Your Honor. I just wanted to check on her, make sure she was okay." "By breaking in through her back door at midnight?" "I didn't break in, the door was unlocked, and I'm her son. I have a right." "You have no right to enter someone's home without permission, son or not." She turned to the bailiff. "Is there an active warrant?" The bailiff checked his computer. "Yes, Your Honor, issued this morning by Judge Thompson." Judge Crawford sighed and leaned back in her chair. "Mr. Coleman, I'm going to save us all some time here. I've read through the preliminary filings, and frankly, I don't see any evidence of incompetence. What I see is a grown man angry that his mother didn't give him what he felt entitled to." "Your Honor, if you'll just allow us to present our case. I've seen your case, and it's weak. You want me to believe that a woman who built a multi-million-dollar business from scratch over 36 years suddenly became incompetent overnight? That doesn't pass the smell test." She looked at me. "Mrs. Hayes, I'd like to ask you some questions directly, if that's all right." I stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "Why did you sell your company?" I took a deep breath. "Your Honor, I built Hayes Manufacturing with my own hands after my husband died. I worked 18-hour days, sacrificed everything to make it successful. I did it to provide for my children and to create something meaningful. But recently, my son made it clear that he felt entitled to my company simply because he's my son, despite the fact that he's contributed very little to its success. He told me he was tired of me and demanded I retire and give him the company. That's when I realized that if I handed my life's work to him, he would destroy it. So I sold it to people who would protect my employees and honor what I built." "And you made this decision freely? No one pressured you?" "I made it completely freely, Your Honor. It was the hardest decision of my life. But it was mine. Judge Crawford nodded slowly. Then she did something unexpected. She looked directly at Terrence. "Mr. Hayes, stand up." Terrence stood, looking confused. "I'm a mother myself," Judge Crawford said, her voice firm. "And I'm going to tell you something your mother is probably too kind to say. You should be ashamed of yourself. Your mother worked her entire life to provide for you, and instead of honoring that sacrifice, you've harassed her, defamed her, sued her, and broke into her home. You've tried to convince the world she's incompetent because she won't hand you something you haven't earned. That's not love. That's greed." "Your Honor, I'm not finished. Here's my ruling. This motion is denied. Mrs. Hayes is clearly competent to make her own decisions. Furthermore, I'm issuing a personal protection order. Mr. Hayes, you are to have no contact with your mother unless she initiates it. You will stay at least 500 feet away from her home, her workplace, and any location she frequents. If you violate this order, you will be arrested. Do you understand?" Terrence's face had gone from red to pale. "You can't do this. She's my mother." "She's a woman who deserves to live in peace without being harassed by her own child. Bailiff, please serve Mr. Hayes with the PPO." She looked at Byron. "Mr. Jefferson, I'm also awarding court costs to your client. Mr. Coleman, your client should count himself lucky I'm not sanctioning him for filing a frivolous lawsuit." She banged her gavel. "This hearing is concluded. Mrs. Hayes, I wish you all the best. And Mr. Hayes, if you ever figure out how to be grateful for what you have instead of bitter about what you think you deserve, maybe you'll understand what your mother tried to teach you." As the judge left, Terrence turned to me, his eyes filled with tears. Real tears this time, not the manipulative kind. "Mom, please, please don't do this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But I looked at him and felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even pity. Just nothing. "Goodbye, Terrence," I said quietly. Byron guided me out of the courtroom. Behind me I could hear Terrence sobbing, Simone trying to comfort him. The bailiff was approaching them with the protection order paperwork. Outside the courthouse, the morning sun was bright. Alicia was waiting on the steps, and when she saw my face, she ran to me. "Mama?" "We won, baby." "We won." She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe, and this time when I cried, it was from relief. Over the next few weeks, things slowly settled down. The police arrested Terrence for breaking and entering. He pleaded guilty and got probation, but the protection order stayed in place. The social media posts disappeared. The phone calls stopped. The threats ended. Some family members reached out to apologize. Others quietly took Terrence's side, and I let them go. You learn eventually that not everyone deserves a place in your life, even if they share your blood. The church community split too. Pastor Reynolds came to see me privately and apologized for doubting me. "I should have known better," he said. "I should have trusted the woman I've known for 40 years over the story I heard." But it was the support I received from unexpected places that really touched me. Gloria and 15 other former employees showed up at my door one Saturday with food, flowers, and hugs. "You gave us our dignity," Gloria said. "Let us give you some of yours back." Mr. Peterson, my elderly neighbor, started checking on me every day. "I'm old and I'm nosy," he'd say with a wink, "so I'm going to be all up in your business until I know you're okay." And Charlene organized a Vivian Hayes Appreciation Day at church, where people stood up and shared stories about how I'd helped them over the years. Jobs I'd given them, advice I'd offered, prayers I'd said. I sat there crying happy tears for the first time in months. 6 months after the hearing, I was invited to the grand opening of the new Hayes manufacturing headquarters. Riverside Industries had expanded the company, doubled the workforce, and kept the Hayes name to honor what I'd built. Patricia Chen gave a speech about legacy and entrepreneurship, then called me up to the stage. "Mrs. Hayes," she said, "you proved that success isn't about what you leave behind for your children." It's about what you build that outlasts you. Hayes Manufacturing will continue to employ hundreds of people, serve thousands of customers, and stand as a testament to what one woman with a dream and determination can accomplish. They unveiled a plaque in the lobby. Hayes Manufacturing, founded 1989 by Vivian Hayes, a woman of vision, strength, and unwavering dedication. Alicia stood beside me holding my hand. Her promotion had come through. She was thriving in her new role, respected and valued for her contributions, not her last name. "You did it, Mama," she whispered. "You protected everything you built." "No, baby," I said. "We did it. You and me together." That night, sitting in my living room with a cup of tea, I thought about everything that had happened, about the son I'd lost and the daughter I'd kept, about the company I'd built and the legacy I'd protected, about the people who'd stood by me and the ones who'd walked away. Was I sad about Terrence? Yes. I'd always be sad about that. He was my child, and a part of me would always love the little boy he used to be. But I'd learned something important. Loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let them go. My phone buzzed. A text from Alicia. "Zara wants to know if you can come to her school play next week. She's playing the lead." I smiled and typed back, "Wouldn't miss it for the world." That was my legacy now. Not a building with my name on it, though that was nice. Not the millions of dollars from the sale, though that security was a blessing. My legacy was Alicia, who'd learned that hard work and integrity matter. It was my grandchildren, who'd watched their grandmother stand up for herself and learned that self-respect is worth fighting for. It was every employee who'd ever worked for me and knew they were valued. I'd spent 36 years building a company, but I'd spent 68 years building a life, and that life was mine. Not Terrence's, not anyone else's. Mine. 3 months later, I was in my backyard garden when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I approached the door carefully. Old habits die hard. Through the peephole, I saw a young man I didn't recognize. I opened the door with the chain still on. "Can I help you?" "Mrs. Hayes? My name is Devin Banks. I work at Hayes Manufacturing. Well, I used to work for you, and now I work for Riverside." "What can I do for you, Devin?" He looked nervous, shifting from foot to foot. "I just wanted to say thank you. 5 years ago, you took a chance on me when I got out of prison. Nobody else would hire me, but you said everyone deserves a second chance. That job changed my life. I've been clean ever since. I got custody of my daughter back, and I just bought my first house." His eyes were wet. "I heard what happened with your son, and I wanted you to know that you didn't fail. You gave people like me hope. That's worth more than any company." After he left, I sat on my porch and cried again. But these were good tears. Healing tears. I'd lost a son, but I'd found myself. I'd sold a company, but I'd saved my dignity. I'd been called crazy, incompetent, senile, but I'd proven them all wrong. And most importantly, I'd learned that freedom isn't about what you own or who loves you. Freedom is about knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone take it from you. I was 68 years old, retired, and finally free. That night, I called Alicia. "You know what? I think I'm ready to travel. I've always wanted to see Paris." "Then let's go, Mama. Let's go see the world." And 6 weeks later, that's exactly what we did. Me, Alicia, Darren, and my grandchildren. We stood at the top of the Eiffel Tower, and Zara asked, "Grandma, were you scared when Uncle Terrence was being mean to you?" I thought about it. "Yes, baby. I was very scared." "But you didn't give up?" "No, I didn't give up. Because sometimes being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway." She nodded seriously, like she was filing that information away for later. Looking out over Paris, holding my granddaughter's hand, I realized that this was what I'd been working toward all along. Not a company, not money, not even justice. This, freedom, peace. The ability to stand tall and know I'd done the right thing, no matter the cost. Terrence sent a letter to Alicia a year after the hearing. He wanted to talk, to apologize properly, to try to rebuild our relationship. Alicia brought it to me, and I read it carefully. "What do you think, Mama?" I folded the letter and handed it back to her. "I think some bridges are meant to stay burned. Maybe one day I'll feel differently. But today I choose peace over reconciliation. I choose me." And for the first time in my entire life, choosing myself didn't feel selfish. It felt like survival. It felt like wisdom. It felt like freedom. Thank you for staying with us through this journey. Please subscribe for more stories and drop a comment. We read every single one.